What's good, man?
Hey, what's up, Chapo? How you doing? How's everything, man?
Good. It's Monday. Kind of looks, feels, smells like a Monday.
I completely understand that. Um, First and foremost, I want to say I appreciate your willingness to do a Syscoin-Assure DeFi AMA. I know that we're very excited for this mutual partnership. I know you and I met recently. We did a YouTube stream together, and I'm very grateful for it. And now I know that we're basically, colleagues. So
We're
I'm looking
we're heading
forward to
heading
speaking to
back for
you
more,
today.
huh? Not many people talk to me and then want to talk to me again, Corey. So diving in deep here.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. Usually on my YouTube, all I do is say I appreciate that. So it's very nice to have people who are willing to speak with me instead of me just being like, "Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that." So, so yeah, guys. So we have a few topics here that we're going to discuss. The space should be about, I would say, about an hour, um, and it's going to be basically discussing the Assure DeFi Syscoin partnership, how Crypto Chapel got into cryptocurrency, why Assure DeFi exists, and how this benefits Syscoin and Assure DeFi. So the first thing I want to ask you, Chapo, is you're a social media influencer in cryptocurrency. You've been around for a while. And tell us about your experience in crypto. Why did you decide to join this asset class?
I started out I guess in the crypto space, like everybody, not knowing anything about it. The first kind of introduction I had to anything crypto related was back in 2015,
Hmm.
and it was because I was a sports bettor and a poker player online, and I was having issues with getting transactions in and out of my bank, and they offered a payment processing form called Bitcoin. And I had no idea what that was, but since I was having issues with my bank, I decided to use it. And I actually had the online sports book walk me through how to get Bitcoin and use Bitcoin for processing my payments. And so I started doing that. And about 6 months later, I realized that the Bitcoin that I was holding my account value in was growing in US dollar value faster than I was actually making money playing poker, which led me to be very curious as far as what in the hell I actually bought and what I was doing, since I didn't realize that it was going to change in value at all. And to my very pleasant surprise, I was making thousands of dollars by owning this stuff called Bitcoin. And so I just started reading about it, learning about it, mostly in 2016, and just became fascinated with blockchain and fell down the rabbit hole, started reading about blockchain tech deep, learned about Ethereum and all of what was going on with programmable smart contracts. And um, just like I said, I fell very, very deep into the hole. And 5 or 6 years later, I just haven't found my way out of it. And so I've been in the space now full time for a little over 2 years, and started Assure DeFi about 6 months after I left my real life career for the space, is when I started this business. And this has been my full time focus for the last year and a half.
Awesome, man. And it goes to show because I did the same thing. Like in 2017, I got into crypto, and then I started getting into crypto while I was in school part time in 2018. And then by 2021, it was just like full time crypto. Went to school for 8 years to be a teacher, but no, that didn't happen. So I completely empathize with that 100%. And it's like the more you literally try, it's funny. The more it's almost like a tornado. The more you try to run, it brings you right back in. So, so I want to ask you this.
There is a little bit of an addiction aspect to it for sure, and it's not just the gambling and the DJing. For me, it's the thought of what it can be, and the dreamer in me about how big it could possibly become, and how it could ultimately impact the world in my lifetime, and just thinking about what it could look like 10, 20, 30 years from now. I think that's part of the addiction for me.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And I want to ask you then, because you brought up Assured DeFi, and I was curious about the reason for the inception of Assured DeFi. What problem did you see within this realm of blockchain that needed to be fixed for the betterment of the ecosystem? Like, what was it? What did you create it for?
I mean, I was sick of getting rugged. Bottom line. I mean, there were scams everywhere. I was totally sick of the fraud that was in this space, and there was really no solution to it. I mean, everybody knows that there's code audits and there's liquidity locks and there's team vesting platforms and there's a lot of Web3 security platforms out there. And at the end of the day, people were losing money hand over fist from scammers.
Yep.
And um, I know with the passion that I have in this, for this space, that it's never going to change, never going to continue to grow unless somebody did something about it, and that there was something radically different that was needed in this space in order to make a real impact to the amount of scams that were happening. Um, at the same time, I gave you a little bit of my background. I mean, I've got a technical background in real life. I stepped into the Web3 space and had 6 years of experience in the Web3 space, including like leading projects in the DeFi world. And I got rugged. I was getting rugged. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking to myself, if I'm getting rugged, what chance does an average person stepping into the space have? I've gone through the equivalent of a college degree of education in this space.
Yep.
And I've actually run businesses or projects in this space. And I'm more educated to start from a technical background than 99% of the people. And I've got more education and experience in this space than 99% of people. I'm more well connected to the insiders in this space than 99% of people. And if I'm still getting rugged, there's a systemic problem here.
It's very well said. Um, when I got into cryptocurrency in 2017, there was this coin called Exchange N, and for what I remember, it had like a 5 million supply, and it was supposed to be a cryptocurrency similar to Binance for its own exchange. And everyone was so bullish about it. We were all in the Discord, and we got in. It pumped up a little bit, and then 5 minutes, and then like 5 hours later, the price collapsed. The website went down, and basically the devs are gone, and the Telegram was destroyed. And it's like you really realize that the amount of rugs that exist in this space are massive. You see it on projects that excuse me, that you wouldn't expect. You see it in all different chains. It's not just exclusive to one chain like BNB or Ethereum, and that's a massive problem because even those who decide to acquaint themselves with one chain, they're not excuse me, they're not safe from something happening to them on the basis of a quote unquote safe chain in their opinion. So I think Assured DeFi is a massive need in this space because having people getting rugged and even the most experienced people getting rugged kind of is a calling card that this space is still in its infancy, and in order for this space to actually evolve is to have people who can actually basically weave through all the nonsense. And now I want to ask you about your clients. Tell us about the clients you've had up until this point. And if you can say, what is the total valuation of the clients that you've garnered so far?
Well, look, before I get into the clients, I mean, if anybody has any doubt as to, how much fraud is in this space, there was a pretty formal report that came out on Uniswap, which, Uniswap is the primary place where liquidity exists for token trading in
Yep.
this space in the DeFi world. And it's not centralized exchanges in DeFi. It's Uniswap,
Yep.
at least on ETH. And there was a pretty formal report that came out and evaluated the about 30,000 tokens that have launched with liquidity on ETH. And essentially, the report broke it down and said that
Yep.
97.7% were malicious or fraudulent. And
Yeah.
I mean, how? how is a normal person supposed to step in or want to step into a market where 97.7% of what gets launched is a fraud, or is
That's true.
malicious? Like, that's ridiculous, right? And it doesn't surprise me that much because honestly, I would say to most people, the majority of what gets launched are scam tokens.
Of course.
Um, there's some good ways to quickly weed out and filter out the obvious scam tokens. Then there's like a second layer of, well, you should check for these things like, did they actually lock the liquidity? Is it actually a real project that has socials and a website and that sort of thing? And there's a second layer. But even once you get beyond that, it's still way over 50% that are fraudulent and scams.
Yep.
Even real projects out there, like more than half of them are fraudulent. And so normal investors or market participants right now, the truth is they just don't stand a chance. They're going to come here, they're going to get chewed up and spit out, they're going to lose a shitload of money, and then they're going to leave. And if we think as a whole, if you really care about this space growing and you love it, you see the value in it, and, you think that there's a future for this space, that can't continue, guys, like bottom line. And most people sit back passively and hope it changes and hope it gets better. And, they're like, well, we've got to be smarter as a community. No, I mean, the truth is you can't expect normal market participants to be smart. And this is why in the traditional financial sector, you have things like regulatory bodies and you have financial advisors and you have people, because you can't expect everyone to go get a 4 or 5 year degree in how to keep yourself safe in in an investment environment.
It's true.
You have to make it safe with the infrastructure. And I've never been the kind of person that sits back passively and just hopes that something happens. I've always been somebody who tries to go make it happen. And this is one of those cases where I got rugged for 6 figures one night.
Oof.
And after cleaning up the vomit off my chest, I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and I said, what happened here? And instead of feeling sorry for myself, I said, this is when I really realized, truly realized that there was a systemic problem that needed addressed. And after boiling it down, the real issue was a matter of accountability. And if you can't hold people accountable, then people will simply do what's not right and act on their own accord, and they're going to look out for number one. And if there is no consequences to bad acts, then there'll be a proliferation of bad actors in the space if there are no consequences. And that's where we are today.
Absolutely.
And so at the end of the day, you have to break that down though and say, is it because we don't want consequences for bad actors? Of course not. I think everybody here, or most people here other than the scammers themselves, would be, I hope they burn. I'd love to see some of those guys get arrested. I'd love there to be consequences because I'm sick of getting rugged. And there's lots of people who see the value in this space, but they don't really know how they can help and contribute. And if this was an easy answer, somebody would have already done it before. So, I spent a lot of time breaking it down to, well, it starts with accountability, but why is there a lack of accountability? Why aren't there consequences? And what are the issues? What are the gaps right now from actually creating consequences for bad actors?
Yep.
And at the end of the day, Assure DeFi is a company that was built on the premise that a lot of gaps exist right now that prevent us holding bad actors accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And those need closed. And it's a complicated solution, but somebody has to do it. And there's nobody better positioned to do it than me because I have 6 years of experience in the space. I have personal experience with getting rugged. I understand the DeFi sector. I have a technical background to do this, and I can build a business for it. And that's why I set out to do it, and that's really what our business is all about. At the end of the day, if you establish consequences for bad actors, the space will be better as a whole, and it'll help the credible people be able to differentiate themselves from the people who are out there who are grifters and scammers.
Very well said. And first and foremost, I want to say congratulations on building such a successful business. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is it is not easy to be able to bounce back from something like that, but instead you turned your setback into comebacks. So I want to say that that's admirable. And 3, you brought up a very interesting point. Now, this study, for what I've seen, because I saw it the second I woke up, basically just came out this study from Uniswap came out today, about 2 hours ago. And basically, I'm reading it now, the 97.7% and the numbers here, 27,588, only 631 of those were not malicious. I want to repeat that. 27,588 tag tokens, of which 631 of them were not malicious. It goes to show how this space, people convey that it's evolved since we got into this space, but let's face it. I mean, I honestly think that's a very subjective notion, because there's more scams now than ever. There's more rugs than ever, because people are launching more things than when we first got into cryptocurrency. And it goes to show that we now have a industry where people are easily scammed if they don't vet projects to the best of their ability. And even when they do vet projects to the best of their ability, it could still end up being a scam. And it's very frightening, to say the least. And now I want to ask you this. So, excuse me. So let's go to the attributes. So what do you attribute to Assure DeFi's success? And then we'll get into Syscoin.
I mean, look, I think what I just talked about and the reason why the company was founded, I think it's an easy one to rally behind, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who agree. There's a lot of people who want to see us be successful. And I think we could do a better job at communicating that emotional value proposition, or the storytelling of the background of the business and why we started it and what our true mission is. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think we're addressing a major problem that everybody knows is a problem. It's like, there's not a whole lot of argument, or I haven't seen a whole lot of cases that say fraud's not really a problem in this space.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like it's unanimous. Everybody knows it is. And it's pretty hard to argue with the fact that, well, maybe we should know who's responsible for things in this space. Maybe that's a good start. It's like, this isn't rocket science, guys, And I think part of the success is that it's pretty easy to understand what we do and why it's important. I mean, if we're going to give millions of dollars to somebody, maybe we should know what the guy's name is.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe at a minimum, we should know what the guy's name is. Oh, here's an idea. Maybe if we're going to give millions of dollars to somebody, maybe we should have an advocate on our side just in case he rugs it and leaves to an island with 2 million, who actually has some law enforcement connections and a legal backing to do something about it. There's a novel idea. Like these aren't complicated thoughts, right? It's just that
it's not.
Right. I mean,
no,
I don't pretend that I'm some genius that's invented this contraption that's incredible, that's going to solve the world's problems. These are some basic requirements that are already in place in traditional investing that just haven't made their way into crypto yet. And the biggest challenge, and I'm making it sound easier than it is, the challenge is that the culture here is different, and you can't require it because this isn't regulation. I'm not a legislator. Right? I'm not a government. I'm not going to come down and enforce things on people. So you have to create a value proposition that's a win-win on both sides, where investors support it because it's good for them, but it's also good for the projects. And that's where I'll say the nuance or the challenge becomes. But at the end of the day, what I think the reason why we're successful is that this is a win-win-win-win for everybody involved. The only people that lose in this entire thing is scammers. Credible project builders, they want to find a way to differentiate themselves, and they spend a lot of money on marketing and that sort of thing, and promotion in a way that they're trying to gain credibility. When we offer something that's an easy way for them to be more credible, why don't you just legally take accountability for what you're building? I think everybody would look at that as a credibility source. You know, and so we're giving project leaders the option to get the credibility they want. We're helping them with promotion and marketing, which is something that they're looking for legitimate options, because they're even getting scammed when they try to pay for marketing services in this space. So we're giving them a legitimate option. And then, obviously from an investor standpoint, you don't have to pay anything. This costs you nothing as an investor. And now you can look, and you just ran the numbers, right? 30,000 tokens, there's 600 of them that are like not malicious. Well, guess what? That 97.7%, it's probably about reversed with Assure DeFi verified projects.
Yep.
So now 97.7% are legitimate, and we might have issues with less than 2-3% of them.
Absolutely.
And so as an investor, this is a home run. It's like, well, this is great. Somebody's going to kind of do my due diligence for me, and now I can look at Assure DeFi verified projects, and at least I'm going to look. Businesses fail, projects fail, but at least you're going to invest in something that isn't malicious and not a fraud. And as an investor, that's what you shouldn't go into it, right? You don't buy stocks thinking, am I going to get robbed? You buy them thinking, do I believe in the thesis? Do I believe in the people? Is this a good price for what I'm buying? And it's an investment. Right now, it really is the shitcoin casino out here, and you're just betting, spinning the wheel, and hoping you don't get rugged. And 97 out of 100 spots are you're getting rugged.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it's very well said. Very well.
I just think, and the same thing applies in the NFT market. This isn't. This is not limited to altcoins anymore. You talked about how there's more things launching than ever. That report was about Uniswap. But now there's 25, 30 different blockchains with less infrastructure than there is on ETH to protect investors. A lot of these places are just opening up liquidity lockers. And things like that. And the NFT space might be worse than them all. Those percentages in the NFT space might be even worse than in the altcoin world. So this isn't limited to Uniswap. This is a broad-reaching issue, and I think the way that you asked what we attribute the success to, I think it's that it's just very relatable. If you've spent any time in this space at all, you've been defrauded, whether you know it or not. Whatever investment went to zero likely was because of fraud, not because of a failed project.
Exactly. And it's funny because I'm reading the report right now, and it says too long didn't read breakdown. And the third basic breakdown is celebrities are behind most of the recent NFT rug pulls. So your favorite celebrities are not people to be trusted, guys. I want to say that again. The celebrities that you adore are not to be trusted. So yeah, that goes to show that's frightening too. And the NFT volume has gone down substantially as well over the last, I think it was the last 6 months. So be very careful, guys. So I want to talk to you a little bit now, Chapo, about Syscoin. And this is where you and I actually met, because I joined the Syscoin team about 2 months ago, and I saw on your platform, on your Twitter, that you're a Syscoin advisor. And I was curious, and I was like, and I said, I was curious to interview you, and I interviewed you on my YouTube channel. We had a good time. We had a good discussion. And I want to ask you, why are you an advisor for Syscoin? What did you see in this project that made you want to become actively involved in its success?
I mean, Syscoin's always been an innovative project, even when I think I first found them back in early 2017. When I was really getting into the space. And first of all, I've always thought, I thought back then everybody in this space was smart as hell. Since then, I've realized that was not the case. But
it's a very accurate statement. Yes.
Yeah, but I've realized that it was just because I really knew nothing at the time, and so everyone seemed smart. But Jag, the lead developer for Syscoin, is just on a whole nother level. And he always has been to me. If you guys don't follow him, or if you haven't heard him speak, or if you haven't ever talked to him directly, I would just say, buckle up, because he's one of the few people that after 6 years I still talk to, and I still feel really dumb when I talk to him. He's, I try to stay with him, but he really is a savant in this space, and he's a visionary. He's smart as hell. He's a hardworking guy. He gets it. He's, but very approachable and relatable. And so he's a good business guy too. And at the end of the day, look, the best investors in the world, they invest in people and not ideas. And I think for me, that was a big piece of it. Was I thought the team, I mean, Jag is a lead developer, amazing guy, but they were very legitimate, between Block Foundry and the way that they were structured business wise. And I felt like the funding and the runway that they had, they would be around. And a lot of people say this about investing in the real world, but it's way more true in crypto. It's like just go pick anything that you think will be around in 5 years, and if it is, it'll be worth a whole hell of a lot more. And so for me, that was the Syscoin team. Out of all the projects that were alts, obviously Bitcoin, not Bitcoin and Ethereum, but as far as the altcoins go, I thought the team was awesome. And so I've been an investor for a long time. And when Jag approached me 4 or 5 years later and asked me to be an advisor, I jumped at the opportunity. I was like, I just felt totally honored. A little bit of a fanboy in me, experience, but I was like, I'd love to advise guys, and the fact that you think that I've got something to bring to the table is just, I'm humbled. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm still an advisor.
Absolutely, and that's an awesome story. Like, and I personally got into Syscoin from a friend. So basically, the individual who got introduced me to Syscoin was Alex G, who is actually in this space right now. So basically, what happened is that him and I was an ambassador, a communications ambassador for Icon, a community ambassador for interoperable protocol that launched in 2017 called Icon. And Alex G basically came up to me wanting to get introduced to the ecosystem, wanted to get introduced to the different validators called P-reps in that system. And I introduced him to the best of my ability to the Icon ecosystem so that he would be able to garner connections and garner a sense of familiarity with the protocol. And as a result of that, we became colleagues in that space for quite some time. And then for a time, we went our separate ways. I started working for other companies, and so did Alex. And then one day, I, call it chance, call it, intervention, call it whatever you want. About 8 months ago, I interviewed Alex about Syscoin, and then I interviewed Jag about Syscoin about 5 months ago. And Jag really did remind me of what cryptocurrency once stood for years ago that I feel like is missing now. And for those who were not in cryptocurrency in 2017, I really feel for you guys because there was such a different atmosphere back then. People actually, and I don't want to see making ubiquities now, but it was a tighter niche community. People really focused on the end goal of peer-to-peer decentralization. They really focused on being able to nullify the power of the state in this ecosystem. It was really a very libertarian utopia. And I started seeing
it. It was definitely more of a revolution. Like
Yes.
we're all in this together
Yes.
type of mentality. A little less every man for himself.
Yes.
Less hating on each other
Yes.
because we're still like such a small minority that boy, if we hate on each other, we're never going to take on the masses. Nobody's ever going to ever going to recognize what we're doing here. That
That
was definitely more of the mentality, whereas now it feels like, since in some ways everybody knows now that the train's already like kind of left the station,
right.
now it's like people are claiming turf, if
It
that makes sense.
it makes perfect sense. When I was in crypto in 2017, there was, at least from an anecdotal perspective, there was much less tribalism going on than I see now in almost every single company that exists. Everybody has created this sense of factionalism. And I find that to be a major issue because if the future is going to be interchain compatibility and interoperability, that notion is antithetical to the inception of an interconnected interchain interoperability ecosystem. So I see 2017. I see it's very strange. The tech has evolved since 2017, but the ideology has devolved, in my opinion. And I want to ask you, Chapo, then, what components of Syscoin excite you the most, in your opinion, and why?
What components of Syscoin excite me the most? I mean, I guess really for me, it's the full launch of the of its own chain. Yeah, it's all the projects building on Syscoin that are coming.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, that's the real future, right? It's the ecosystem of Syscoin. It's not Syscoin as a project or a platform. It's the way that the ecosystem can grow. And I think with the way that Syscoin Foundation and the group is set up, um, they've taken a lot of time to plan for it and see how it could potentially be funded. And I think they've got I think Syscoin has a real chance of developing a pretty predominant full ecosystem in the space. So I don't know how you could not list that as your number one excited kind of component of Syscoin right now, with what's upcoming here, even just in the next couple months, and how many projects are lining up at the door.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you then, how do you want to see our partnership between Assure DeFi and excuse me and Syscoin evolving and benefiting one another?
Well, look, I mean, we actually Assure just posted today a chart. I don't know if anybody here saw it. I only think it was a couple hours ago that we might have posted it, but it was a chart that showed based on the contracts on various chains, how many of them were scams. And it was like, Binance Smart Chain led by a long shot. It was like 12% or something like that. And on ETH, it was 8%. And obviously, this is kind of counter to necessarily the Uniswap report, but these are obviously like reported scams from this outfit called Solidus Labs.
Just shared it.
And okay, cool. Um, and so, look, I think if you guys are in this space and you're well connected, you probably know Binance Smart Chain has become like literally the scam chain.
Yes.
Binance scam chain. People say that, and there's a reason. And there's other chains though, which just aren't like that.
Hmm.
And yes, there's fraud and there's scams, but it's not nearly as prevalent. And there's things that they're doing, like if you look at Metis, for instance, and the Phantom Foundation, there's things they're doing to try to reduce the amount of fraud, and
Yeah.
they're cognizant about protecting their reputation. Stacks is another blockchain which is focused on protecting their reputation, and so they're willing to sacrifice a little bit of the speed of growth and that sort of thing in order to make sure that the chain is safe for their users. And I think in general, there's always a trade off, or there usually is a trade off between speed and security.
Of course.
That's like one of the most common trade offs ever in the trilemma. But I think in a lot of ways, the way I'd like to see the partnership is I do believe that the Syscoin core team and the foundation and the people involved with developing the ecosystem are true believers in having accountability and trying to integrate that in as many ways as you can reasonably as the ecosystem grows, to protect the reputation of the chain, to protect the users, to protect the
Right.
investors, and to help the people who are credibly building on the chain. I think is the way I see it. And so that just looks like Assure DeFi working with a lot of the projects, especially early on, to make sure that as it grows, it's like early on, it's a little bit like a newborn, very sensitive, very fragile. You've got to coddle it a little bit. You don't want to have a major reputational issue
Of course.
early. And I think Assure DeFi can be part of that in making sure that Syscoin maintains the reputation of credibility that it deserves. And I know that there's talk of potentially a pretty large ecosystem fund. I think helping funds and making sure that any investment that the fund makes, it has some accountability behind it, I think is another way that Assure DeFi could potentially be involved, which is another way to support the growth of the ecosystem as a whole. And so overall, I just think as things expand, we can help the NFT side, we can help certainly the altcoin and platform side, and with the Assure network that we have, where we serve as an accelerator and help projects get connected to the resources that they need. I think in general, we can facilitate a lot of that growth on the network too.
It's very well said. And one thing I look forward to is looking to the future, because I find it to be so valuable in this space to understand and to be able to gauge what would happen to what will happen, excuse me, to this ecosystem, to this space, and how it will evolve or possibly devolve. There is some fear and concern, I'm not going to lie, with the things that I see. So I'm curious to hear, and this will be my last question, and then we'll just do a quick 20-minute AMA if anybody has any questions.
Cool.
So where would you like to see Assure DeFi and Syscoin in 2 years' time?
Well, I kind of work on crypto years are a little bit like dog years. So 2 years is about 20 years in real time. So you're asking me about a pretty long time horizon. But uh, the business itself feels like we've been around forever, and a lot of people are like, "Oh man, you guys have been around for a long time," and it's really been 18 months,
Yep.
or so. So 2 years is over double the length our company's been around. Period. But I think as you look forward, right now we predominantly are known as a founder verification company. The problem with security, again, kind of going back to the reason why the company was founded and trying to protect people and the fact that there's all these rugs.
Yep.
Accountability is good, right? And I give people this analogy a lot of times. We're a lot like the security cameras. So, you put up a security camera at your house. Now there's an accountability path, because if somebody breaks into your house, they're on camera.
Right.
But does that mean that you don't have a front door, or you don't lock your door, or you don't have a deadbolt, or you don't have an audible alarm? Of course not, right?
Yeah.
Like, multiple layers of security are important to protect people. And just knowing who somebody is and the fact that they're legally accountable doesn't prevent bad things from happening.
Right.
And so I think one of the issues that investors have today is that there isn't sort of like a Moody's rating of sorts, or there's no one stamp of credibility that says it's been audited, the liquidity is locked, the team token investing platform, is being used for any team controlled tokens. It's under a multi-sig. We know who the people are on the multi-sig. The founders have been verified and accountability has been taken. Cyber pen testing report came back clean, and this thing is good to go. Here's our rubber stamp. Boom. You are now safe to invest, Mr. Investor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right? There's
Yeah.
nothing like that. And right now, you've got to be really savvy to navigate in this space. You've got to know that checklist. I mean, how many people could have even if you surveyed 10,000 people in this space, how many people could have just reeled off that?
Probably not many.
And then it goes beyond that, right? Like, have you checked their socials and read their website and looked at the website data to see how recently it was created, and seen how old is their Twitter account and is it botted? And have you checked out their socials to see how organic and how much activity it really is? And man, doing due diligence in this arena is just hard. It's complicated. And I've always hated, absolutely despised the DYOR.
Yep.
Because nobody knows how.
I agree.
So you're asking somebody to do their own research, and they're like, okay, but you're asking them to do something that they don't know how to do. So nobody does it because nobody knows how. And there's no guide on how to do your own research. And there's nobody out there who's acting as an advocate to do research for people who don't know how to do it themselves. And so it's just very difficult right now. So when you look at the future, which, going back to your question, when you look at the future, I think we've started by plugging gaps where currently nobody did what we do today, and we felt like it was very essential. So that's part of it. But that doesn't take away from everything everybody else has already done in the past with, like I said, code audits and liquidity locking and all the other things that are being done to protect investors. But I think as you look at Assure DeFi, instead of a KYC company or a founder verification company, I think you should really look at us more in the future as a verification provider in the Web3 space. And that can be a lot broader than just founder identity verification and accountability type of services. It could be code audits. It could be providing third-party checks to see what other security measures are in place, and providing more information to investors to make their decision-making process easy to help protect them. And it could be more an informational platform for verifications versus just a founder verification service like we are today.
Absolutely. And that's very well said. We need to look at the future. We need to look at how we can help people learn how to research this space, because even the most veteran investors in this space may not be as adept as they think they are on how to truly navigate this space and realize what's fact, what's fiction, what's a scam, what's not, what principles should stand in a specific project. And I find that to be sad, concerning, and frightening as we move forward. And if this is the ethos of cryptocurrency, then excuse me, then regulators can come in and justify some sense of despotism, because they can play the no one knows what they're doing card. So we have to be an educated populace in order to be able to, I don't know, garner the evolution of security and garner the evolution of this this ecosystem as we as a community see fit. So those are the questions that I wanted to say. And I just wanted to say thank you, Chapo, for answering all my questions. And now what we'll do is, for the next, I'd say, about 15 minutes, we'll do a quick community AMA if anybody has any questions. Alex, I've seen your hand was up a few times. Do you want to say something?
Oh, what's up, guys? I just wanted to say hi. I came in kind of midway through the space, and I heard Chapo going on about uh, just kind of like the importance of what he's doing, or what Assure DeFi is doing, and kind of how it's like a no-brainer. It's not anything rocket science or anything like that. So I'm very excited to have Assure as a partner. I do see a lot of projects coming in the future and using them for accountability and all those other things that can evolve to. And thank you, Corey, for always giving me a shout out when talking about our history, how we got together. I'll tell you one thing, like what's going to make us succeed in the long run is this team. This team has amazing synergy. We've spent a lot of time together. And I think that's what it takes at the end of the day. Like Chapo said, you invest in the person. We've got a great leader and visionary in Jag, but we also got a group of wonderful individuals with just really great ideas and great drive to be able to take Syscoin to the top. So yeah, I'm just kind of happy to be here and chat with all you guys and the community that's involved. And let's go and get it and see how this thing grows.
Yeah, and I think actually, Corey, I know you said that we met through Syscoin. I think Alex actually introduced us. So I think Alex is the real glue here.
Yes, he is. He's the Elmers to the
Elmers, come on, man. Gorilla, bro. Gorilla glue.
For real. That's so true.
Put that in your hair. World-class business development. Here we go.
I'm going more like two-tube epoxy, man. Now we're tied together.
Let's go. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my drive is it's always been kind of connecting people and finding the right people with the right synergies. And I talked to you, Chapo, about 2 months ago about, just Syscoin in general, and then some individual project that we're going to launch. So I'll be excited to work on that with you here shortly. And it's just good vibes, man. Good vibes. We're in it for something good in the midst of a space that a lot of people take advantage to do bad things in. So I don't want to go over like the whole,
it is refreshing though. It is refreshing working with people who are in it for like the right reasons and also have a long-term focus. And there's so many things that are in this space that are being built for the wrong reasons and with such a short-term mentality. it's just nice to work with people that are more aligned from, I guess, just an overall kind of value position. It's easy to work with you guys, and makes a lot of sense to be partners with people who share the same kind of mindset.
Absolutely. So, Kintsuji, do you? I see your hand up. Do you want to say something?
Hey guys, I just wanted to come in. I'll introduce myself real fast before I get to my point. But my name is Dylan, also known as Kintsugi. If you don't know what Kintsugi is, then I encourage you to look it up. Just spell it with an I instead of a Y. But that's beside the point. So I'm a member of the Syscoin team. I got my first Bitcoin in 2011. So I guess you can consider that I've been in the space a little while. And just to circle back to some of the things that Corey and Chapo were talking about earlier, a lot of what interests me about the space is the philosophy behind it, especially the early philosophy that we're seeing less of as it grows and more people latch on who don't have any awareness of how it started. But I guess you guys were talking about revolution, and it just brings me back to, at the same time, I was a big Ron Paul guy. That was his slogan, revolution. And there's a lot of comparisons that can be made between this libertarian-esque philosophy that we hold to a high ideal. At least I do. I know Corey does as well. And I think it's a great thing what Assure DeFi is doing, just because we see as new industries pop up and become more legitimate, in time, regulation always creeps in, and it's always done for the greater good. But as we might know, the greater good also has a lot of unintended consequences that don't actually amount to as much good as one might like. And
Yep.
so a lot of times industries historically will regulate themselves in order to avoid these issues. And that's basically what we're doing with crypto.
Man, I love that. I love that, Dylan. I didn't realize that was you, by the way. And now, since you've been talking, I've been listening passively as I've been looking into fixing Japanese pottery. So now I know what kintsugi is.
Here.
But
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Ron Paul was a legend, and actually, it's funny you mentioned him, because one of the there's this quote that Ron Paul had, which was something that I think a lot about with what we're doing with Assure DeFi, and it's setting a good example is a far better way to spread ideals than through force of arms. And for us and what we do, I talked a little bit about how we're not a regulatory body. We aren't legislators. We can't come in and force people to do what we want and take accountability, right? We're not a government body that can just mandate that people do this. So we've had to create this win-win. But when you think about what we do, our hope is that if enough good actors in this space choose to take accountability and set a good example by taking accountability because they want the credibility, and investors give them that credibility. And it's this good example of, I take credibility, look how much easier it was for me to raise funds, and investors support those project leaders who are willing to take accountability. If you do that, it's a far better way to spread, this whole philosophy of getting this in the space, rather than regulators coming in with a heavy hand and trying to over-regulate it, and then everybody pushing back on it, even though it is a good thing, pushing back on it and creating kind of like a black market of those who just won't listen to the regulation.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, basically what you're doing is you're setting a standard. You're not forcing it on anyone, which, as someone from a libertarian background, I appreciate. And legitimate projects will yearn to have that seal of approval. And that's the thing. You're not forcing anyone to do it. So if you want to throw your money in the wind and invest in a fly-by-night crypto project, then you're free to do so. And you can potentially reap the rewards of that. And you're also free to just give your money away. But I think it's a beautiful thing that's happening. I think it's it's necessary because as more stuff pops up like this and as more scams happen, the SEC is going to want to get involved, apart from every other government organization that wants to crack down on the space potentially. And the longer we can forgo that from happening and show that we are capable of governing ourselves in a way, I mean, it's just going to be better for everyone.
Totally.
Yeah. I have to say, Chapo,
sorry, go ahead.
Just wanted to jump in for a second. This is Bradley. So it's good to listen and hear you explain what you're doing with Assure. So I think what you're involved in really is a big part of the battle, so to say, which I think for us, for humanity, for emergent advancement is really just about solving problems, solving big problems in new ways. And I think once we solve this particular problem that Assure is focused on, it really renders the old way of doing things, these centralized regulatory bodies that tend to default toward pointing their guns at people to solve problems that they couldn't figure out how to engineer solutions to. It's a big part of winning on that front, and it'll make the future a whole lot better. So I think Assure DeFi is definitely something to stand behind, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. We recently gave some of you may know this, but recently we were invited to give a presentation down at the conference. We got invited from the FBI to present in front of law enforcement for one of the FBI's virtual asset units called the NCIJTF. And, we titled our presentation a modern approach to blockchain security. And what you just said, Bradley, is, that about engineered solutions. We compare a lot, again, of what we do to a modern approach to blockchain security that for the first decade, which makes a lot of sense, we tried to prevent bad things from happening. And it was a lot like how in the old days, people put up walls and fortresses, and we had knights and guards and moats and sentry towers and this sort of stuff. And that's really what audits are and liquidity locking is, and these different aspects of trying to physically prevent something from happening. But once that bad act happened, or once an exploit or hack or rug happened, pretty much there was nothing to do about it anymore. And it was a little bit the same. Once the siege happened and people were inside the castle, it was all over. But if you look at on kind of a modern day, just because somebody enters your house and steals something doesn't mean it's all over it. And because we have accountability paths and an effective law enforcement system in order to do something about it. And that's the modern approach to security is, somebody can come and bust down your door, but there's going to be consequences to it. And that's why people don't do it. And the deterrence or defense by accountability is typically a lot stronger and is a much more effective way to really defend from bad things happening than physical defense. And so it is a modern approach, but you couldn't have done this 5 years ago because law enforcement wouldn't be there and wasn't quite ready for it. Not that law enforcement is fully up to speed, and I'll say they're behind like everybody says they are, but maybe not as far behind as you think. And now is the right time to put the accountability structure and the relationships in place to help law enforcement really start prosecuting and really start putting some of these people in hot water to set those examples. Just like good examples are a strong way of getting kind of new technology out there. I think bad examples are a really good way to deter it also. So that's a big kind of, I'll just say, thought experiment here is about the difference between what we've done in the past to defend ourselves as investors from scams and fraud up to this point with all of these different tools and tricks and platforms versus what we're doing is a little bit like the difference between all those physical defenses and walls and barbed wires and a modern day security system.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. And all I want to say now, I know this space has been going on for about an hour and I'd say about 15 minutes. All I want to say to everyone who joined this space, first and foremost, thank you. The second thing I want to request, excuse me, is if you could follow Syscoin, follow Assure DeFi, follow El Crypto Chapo, as we will be discussing intricately and consistently what we are doing, how we are building, how we're building together. And I'm sure we're going to host numerous different Twitter spaces in the future. So this is not something that's going to end just by this one space. So all I want to say is thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. El Crypto Chapo, thank you so much for helping me schedule this. And I appreciate all that you do. And I can't wait to have you on again, buddy.
Yeah, cool. Good chatting with you again. I'm still good for a little bit here, guys. So I don't know if there's any other questions out there, but I can hang for a couple minutes and chat if you just want to come up, say hi. That's cool too. I think I'm not a co-host; I'm just a speaker, but I'm sure one of these guys can let you up too. So, is there anybody else that has questions or just wants to say what's up? I see OK Hotshot in here. He joined. He's another guy who's doing some good stuff out there to help protect people in the space, more on the NFT side. Nice to see you, man.
Yeah, I see some people also in the Pulse Chain community. Jay Money, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for joining the space, bud. Jay Money is great in this space. Does a lot for the Pulse Chain ecosystem. Really great guy. I've interviewed him before in the past. Really good dude. Met him in Las Vegas when we had a Pulse Chain conference. So it was really nice to meet him. We have someone who else. There we go.
OK Hotshot raised his hand.
Okay, Hotshot.
I don't know if he was just waving saying what's up or whether
Yeah,
he raised his hand. But...
Yeah. So I saw someone raise their hand, so I just gave them speaker privileges. If anybody wants to say anything.
Hey, Corey, thanks for letting me in.
Sure.
Yeah, greetings to Dylan. We met in DEFCON a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, hola, Fernando.
¿Cómo estás, amigo? So,
what was that? Was that down in Bogota?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Nice.
We had great times there with Alex and Patrick. So, yeah, just wanted to shout out here and congratulate for the space. We have also some spaces in Spanish for the Latin American community, so we'd like to formally invite the Assure DeFi people. We can have a bilingual space, maybe, for the Spanish community. We can do on like live translation if you are available for that. Would be amazing.
I'd be down for that.
Okay, fantastic.
We've got a couple Spanish speakers in our on our team also.
Oh, fantastic!
Amazingly, my Spanish is not the best despite the username, but we do have a couple Spanish speakers on the team. So and I can get by, but you wouldn't want to hear me struggle through a full spaces in Spanish. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, you can have your team, or you can also join us. I mean, both things. We can translate it for something you want to share. So let's coordinate.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, shoot me a DM, and we can get something set up.
Cool. All right. I don't see anybody else requesting to come up here. So all I want to say, everyone, again, thank you so much for coming. Please consider following El Crypto Chapo, myself, Syscoin, and Assure DeFi. We give consistent updates on what we're doing in this space. And I want to say thank you so much for everyone who joined. And El Crypto Chapo, thank you so much for having a conversation with me, bud.
The only way I'm ever going to do it again is if you stop calling me El Crypto Chapo and just start calling me Chapo, though.
Deal.
All right, cool.
All right, guys.
Good chatting with you. Thanks everybody else for joining. Appreciate you all.
Have a great one, everyone. Thank you.
See you guys.